Stop trying to get back to the old you. She doesn't exist anymore. What you've been through, what you've experienced has changed you. You're different now. You're wiser, you're much smarter. You understand people differently now. Your worldview has changed. You're also not into the same things anymore. Different things excite you now, like expanding your creativity and connecting with God, and expressing yourself out loud is now freeing. You are not the same person anymore. You've changed and you've grown. You are a whole new you, and it's time you start to accept her. Trust me, she's super cool.
He said, "Would you date you?" I looked at him and said, "I'd be outside my house with a boombox in the rain."
Always asking me what I got on. They be like, "Hey Brandon, what you got on?" Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. That's split. That's split right there.
On October 7th, 2023, 40-year-old Tiffany Wade was shot twice inside Platinum Cuts barbershop in North Philadelphia, once in the torso and once in the head, while her 7-year-old son sat in the barber's chair getting a haircut. And the shooter was 44-year-old Armand Hilton, her ex-partner and the father of that very child, who witnessed his mother's execution. But this wasn't just a random act of domestic violence, and Armand didn't just wake up one day and decide to kill Tiffany. Before Armand went to prison for kidnapping, armed robbery, and assault, he transferred millions of dollars worth of properties and money to Tiffany to keep them safe from the government. But when he came home after serving his time, everything had changed. The locks were different, the properties were sold, the money was gone. Did Tiffany really steal from Armand while he was locked up, or is this just another tragic case of a violent man destroying the woman who tried to help him? Before we dive into the blood-soaked barbershop floor and the manhunt that's still ongoing more than 2 years later, we need to go back to where it all started, back to the streets of Chester, Pennsylvania. And as we walk through this story, you'll see 6 undeniable red flags that could have saved Tiffany's life if only someone had been paying attention.
A lot. But this was wrong. Thanks for money.
Somebody stole hers.
Somebody stole it?
Somebody gave it.
I burnt my leg. I lost my mind. Hey, y'all. I look a mess. I don't even care. Oh my God. Look at that.
That's what I said.
That is so nice. I gotta do her whole thing. Look at Grandma.
Oh yeah, I know who got that. Some lady.
That was Dion. She's with Shakia.
Some lady with a red.
Oh, this is so nice. Look at that. Y'all see her?
Yeah.
Hey, Mom.
She told me.
Look at her.
Give me mine.
This is the first one I opened up. A mother's love is unconditional. Y'all see it? Stop playing with Mom.
Armand Hilton was born in March 1979 in Chester, Pennsylvania, a working-class city in Delaware County where economic struggle and elevated crime rates painted the backdrop of countless young lives. By the time he turned 21, Armand had already built a lengthy criminal history. He wasn't just some petty thief stealing car radios or shoplifting from convenience stores. Armand was involved in serious, violent crimes that showed a complete disregard for human life and the law. On March 1st, 2002, Armand and 2 accomplices kidnapped a 17-year-old boy outside a store in the only section of Philadelphia. They snatched this teenager off the street, held him overnight, and demanded $50,000 from his family for his safe return. Think about the terror that boy must have felt, held captive by men who were armed with 2 9mm Glock pistols and a Ruger revolver, knowing that his life hung in the balance of whether his family could scrape together that kind of money. Fortunately, the boy managed to escape from his captors in West Philadelphia, and when Armand and his crew tried to collect the ransom anyway, police were waiting. Armand was arrested and charged with kidnapping, robbery, conspiracy, and aggravated assault. Now, according to numerous accounts, Armand served up to 20 years in prison for these crimes. 20 years is a long time to sit in a cell and think about what you've lost, what you left behind, and what you're going to do when you get out. And according to the story that's been circulating on social media, Armand spent those years thinking about Tiffany Wade. When someone has demonstrated a pattern of violent behavior, especially crimes involving weapons and the terrorizing of innocent people, that pattern doesn't just disappear because they've served their time. Armand's criminal record showed he was capable of kidnapping, of holding a child for ransom, of threatening lives with firearms. Anyone entering a relationship with someone carrying this kind of history needs to understand that rehabilitation isn't guaranteed, and violence can resurface when the right triggers appear. But let's talk about Tiffany Wade, because her story is just as important, if not more so, than Armand's criminal past. Tiffany Wade was born around June 17, 1983 in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, where she was raised in a devoted Muslim family that emphasized faith, education, and community service. Unlike Armand, who was building a criminal resume, Tiffany was building a legitimate future. She entered college at just 17 years old and earned her nursing license by age 20, graduating from Methodist Hospital in Philadelphia as the youngest student in her class. Her classmates nicknamed her the Prodigy because of her dedication and accelerated achievement. Tiffany didn't stop at nursing. She built an interconnected business empire under the Kisses brand. There was Kisses Care Home Care, which provided healthcare services and drew directly from her nursing background. There was Kisses Amore Extensions, which specialized in luxury hair products and salon services. There was Seasoned Kisses, a culinary venture selling custom seasonings. She even branched out into real estate, catering, CBD and hemp products, custom t-shirts, and adult novelties. Online, she went by the name Nyla Amore, and her social media presence showed a woman who had achieved what so many people only dream about. She posted about luxury travels to Dubai, London, and Egypt. She shared motivational quotes and readings from the Quran.
She grew up to do many things. She went to college at the age of 17, became a registered nurse at 20. She's done hair. She sold edible candles. She sold t-shirts, business startups, tickets to events, Kisses open mic, Kisses pop-up shops, Kisses pool parties, networking events, TLC, Kisses Zooms, Kisses kitchen classes, Kisses boutiques, Kisses shapers, Kisses sex toys, lofty kisses, event spaces, Kisses extensions, Hempley kisses, Kisses dip. Y'all went crazy over that dip. Kisses seasons, Kisses brunch, Kisses home care and real estate. And she still finds time to give back. And her charitable contributions and self-motivation only adds to how special of a person she is.
Tiffany documented her life as a mother to 3 children, with her Instagram bio proudly declaring "mother first, everything else second." But beyond the glamorous lifestyle and the business success, Tiffany was known in her community for quiet generosity. She funded nursing textbooks for students who couldn't afford them. She started small businesses for other people and provided school supplies for children in need. Tiffany raised money for families fighting cancer and mentored young women and hosted virtual sessions during the pandemic to support emerging entrepreneurs. People who knew her described her as passionate, educated, kind, ambitious, warm, caring, and dedicated. Tiffany was, by all accounts, a community leader whose impact extended far beyond her own success.
I just came on here to say my birthday's tomorrow. That's it. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. That's it.
And it worked out. And it worked out in your favor. And you leveled up. And you've grown. And you've evolved. And you now know yourself.
I love when somebody says about a woman, oh, she's too much. She's too much for me. She's too much of what? Too much of an opinion. She laughs too loudly, stands too tall, takes up too much space. What would be just the right amount? And not too much. She'd have to be less. That's what you're saying. You're saying be less if she's too much. You know what I think? I think she should not get...
So how did these two people, one building a criminal empire and the other building a legitimate business empire, end up in a relationship that would end in murder? Tiffany and Armand were in a relationship, and together they had a son, born around 2016, who would be 7 years old on that terrible October day in 2023. The exact nature of their relationship is disputed in various accounts. Official police records describe Armand as Tiffany's boyfriend and the father of her youngest child, but some social media narratives claim they were married, even referring to them as ex-spouses. There's no public record of a legal marriage, so it's possible they had an informal or common law arrangement that people interpreted as marriage. Here's where the story takes its most controversial turn. Before Armand went to prison for his kidnapping conviction, he allegedly transferred substantial assets, including money and properties worth millions, to Tiffany to shield them from government forfeiture. The idea was simple. If the assets were in her name, the government couldn't seize them as proceeds of crime. Tiffany would hold on to everything while Armand served his time, and when he came out, she'd return it all so he could start fresh. But when Armand was released from prison sometime before October 2023, possibly in 2022 or early 2023, he came home to find that everything had changed. The properties were sold, the money was invested in Tiffany's businesses, the locks were changed, contact was blocked. Some sources even claim Tiffany had divorced him while he was inside and even started a new relationship with another man. Even if we accept the viral narrative as true, and that's a big if, the decision to transfer assets to avoid government seizure created a massive power imbalance. When you give someone complete control of your finances with no legal safeguards, you're setting up a situation where betrayal becomes not just possible, but almost inevitable. If Armand really did transfer millions to Tiffany, that decision showed a lack of foresight about what 20 years could do to a relationship, especially when one person is locked up and the other is free to make choices without consultation. But when you look at official police reports and news coverage from legitimate media outlets, there's absolutely no mention of property disputes, asset transfers, or financial motives. Law enforcement consistently describes the shooting as a domestic dispute between partners, period. There's no endorsement of the financial betrayal narrative. In fact, some people who claim to have known Armand and Tiffany personally have pushed back hard on the viral story, saying that Tiffany built her wealth independently, that she actually supported Armand after his release, and that he came home to nothing because he never had substantial assets to begin with. Others have pointed out that Tiffany's businesses appeared to peak around 2020 to 2023, which would have been after Armand's release if he got out in 2022, making it unlikely that she built her empire on his money during his incarceration. We may never know for certain, but what we know for sure is what happened on October 7th, 2023, and that's where our story takes its darkest turn. October 7th, 2023 started like any other Saturday for Tiffany Wade. According to reconstructed timelines based on her social media activity and witness accounts, she woke up around 7 in the morning, performed her morning prayers as was her custom as a practicing Muslim, had her coffee, checked orders for her various businesses, and had breakfast with her children. At 11:47 that morning, Tiffany posted her final Instagram story. The message read, "Everybody want to be seen, but me, if I catch the right play, you'll never see me again." Looking back at those words now, knowing what would happen just hours later, it's impossible not to feel the weight of that statement. Was she planning something? Was she thinking about leaving Philadelphia? Or was it just a random thought, the kind of thing people post online every day without realizing it might be their last public words? Around 12:30 in the afternoon, Tiffany decided to take her 7-year-old son for a haircut. It was a routine errand, the kind of thing parents do every weekend. She drove to Platinum Cuts Barbershop on the 2500 block of West Lehigh Avenue in North Philadelphia, a neighborhood she knew well. They arrived around 1:15 and her son climbed into the barber's chair while Tiffany stood nearby, scrolling through her phone, probably checking on her businesses or responding to messages from customers and friends. Everything was normal and safe until 1:45. Here's something that doesn't appear in every account of this case, but is absolutely crucial to understanding how preventable this tragedy might have been. According to multiple social media posts, Armand had been making threats against Tiffany. Messages that were allegedly shared online included statements like, "I'm a psychopath, and you ain't making it out of Philly." If these threats existed and were documented, why wasn't Armand already in custody? Why wasn't there a restraining order? Why was Tiffany out in public, vulnerable, with her child, when someone had explicitly stated his intention to harm her? This is where the system fails victims of domestic violence over and over again. Threats are dismissed as empty words until they're not. Women are told to be careful, to stay vigilant, to protect themselves, but the burden of safety is placed on them rather than on the men making the threats or the system that could intervene.
I look at you different. Why the f you worry about my baby mom? I don't give a. If you ever was to talk to nigga, she'd tell you that.
I would never talk to that. That bitch ain't on my level. She ain't do nothing to me, and she never been in my circle. She never been around me. I didn't know that.
And you've been bringing it up. So now I'm gonna give you what you want. To touch you again, I'm never physically gonna hurt you. Married as blowing this head off on everything I love. I'm going back to prison on everything. Man, I don't give a okay? I told you stop throwing it in my face. If this is what you want to do, go in and do it. Stop throwing it in my face. All right. I just left you 2 months ago. Stop throwing it in my face.
At approximately 1:45, Armand Hilton walked through the door of Platinum Cuts Barbershop. Security footage would later show him calling out Tiffany's name. She turned toward him, and in that split second, her fate was sealed. Armand pulled out a gun and fired 2 shots. The first bullet hit Tiffany in the torso, the second struck her in the head. She fell to the floor, still wearing the barber's cape that had been draped over her while she waited for her son's haircut to finish. The child screamed, and witnesses in the barbershop scrambled for cover. Everyone was calling 911, shouting about blood and a child and a woman who wasn't moving. At 1:49, just 2 minutes after the shooting, the first emergency calls came flooding in. Police and paramedics rushed to the scene, but it was already too late. At 2:04 in the afternoon, just 19 minutes after Armand walked through that door, Tiffany Wade was pronounced dead. Armand didn't stick around. As soon as the shots were fired, he turned and fled eastbound, jumping into a vehicle that was later described as either a black Chevrolet Malibu or a gold Chevrolet Tahoe, depending on which witness account you believe. The vehicle was later found abandoned, but Armand was gone. Police recovered 9mm shell casings from the scene. No weapon was left behind. Homicide detective Raymond Martinez reviewed the security footage and quickly identified Armand Hilton as the shooter. Charges were filed almost immediately: first-degree murder, robbery, and firearms violations. An all-points bulletin went out across Philadelphia and surrounding areas. The manhunt for Armand Hilton had begun. But here's what makes this case even more disturbing. This shooting wasn't Tiffany's first encounter with gun violence that year. It wasn't even Philadelphia's first domestic violence homicide that October. By the time Tiffany was killed, she was the 37th victim of domestic violence in Philadelphia in 2023 alone. 37 people, mostly women, were killed by intimate partners or family members in less than 10 months. That's more than one person every week dying at the hands of someone who supposedly loved them. Domestic violence almost never starts with murder. It escalates and builds. There are warning signs along the way. controlling behavior, isolation from friends and family, financial abuse, verbal threats, physical intimidation. If the narrative about Armand's anger over the property situation is true, then his rage had been building for months, maybe even years while he was still in prison. By the time he was released, that anger had calcified into something deadly. And if the alternative narrative is true, that this was simply a man with a violent history who couldn't accept that his relationship was over, then the escalation happened in the weeks or months after his release, when he realized Tiffany had truly moved on. Either way, murder was the end point of a journey that had many stops along the way, stops where intervention could have happened if someone had been paying attention. Tiffany's family was devastated. Her father, who had been a pillar of support throughout her life, especially after her mother's death, now had to bury her daughter. Her sister publicly mourned her as someone with a heart of gold. Her 3 children, including the 7-year-old who witnessed the murder, were left without a mother. Her eldest daughter would later post tributes saying, "Happy birthday, Mommy, your legacy will live on." The community rallied around Tiffany's memory. Vigils were held, support networks formed. Her businesses, which she had worked so hard to build, were maintained by her family. They celebrated what would have been her birthdays as heavenly birthdays, keeping her memory alive while simultaneously mourning the future she would never have. But while Tiffany's family grieved and tried to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, Armand Hilton remained free. And that's where we are right now, more than 2 years, with a killer still on the loose.
To the family and to the friends of the family of Tiffany Wade, there is no loss greater than the loss of a human life. There is no pain greater than the pain of loss of a human life. Family, what we're going to say on 3? Kisses. As the doves circle to find their way home, your loved one, Miss Tiffany, is already home.
1, 2. Kisses!
As of today, more than 2 years after Tiffany Wade was murdered in cold blood in front of her young son, Armand Hilton remains at large. There have been no confirmed arrests, no confirmed sightings, nothing to suggest that law enforcement is any closer to bringing him to justice than they were on October 7, 2023. The Philadelphia Police Department, working in collaboration with the District Attorney's Office, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the FBI, continues to actively search for Hilton. A $20,000 reward has been offered by the Citizens Crime Commission for information leading to his arrest and conviction. That reward remains active, waiting for someone to come forward with the tip that finally ends this manhunt. But where is Armand Hilton? Authorities believe he may be hiding in areas he knows well: Chester, Pennsylvania, where he grew up, North Philadelphia, where he has connections, or even Delaware, just across the state line. Some sources suggest he may be using fake ID and relying on a network of former associates who either fear him too much to turn him in or remain loyal despite his fugitive status. In July 2024, the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office released a list of the 10 most wanted fugitives in Northwest Philadelphia homicide cases. Armand Hilton was prominently featured on that list, alongside other individuals wanted for murders dating back to 2018. The DA's office made public appeals for information, emphasizing that these cases remain active priorities for law enforcement. The case of Armand Hilton and Tiffany Wade isn't unique. In fact, it is closely similar to another tragic story that happened years earlier, one that shows just how dangerous it can be when we fail to properly assess the risks posed by recently released offenders. In 1996, a 16-year-old named Travis Lewis murdered 75-year-old Sally Snowden McKay and her 52-year-old nephew Joseph Lee Baker at their historic estate in Horseshoe Lake, Arkansas. Lewis was convicted and sentenced to 28.5 years in prison. Sally's daughter, Martha McKay, a devoted Buddhist who believed in forgiveness and redemption, began corresponding with Lewis in prison. She visited him, encouraged his rehabilitation, and when he was released in 2018 after serving 23 years, she even hired him to do maintenance work at the family estate, which she had converted into a bed and breakfast. In late 2019, $10,000 went missing from the sale of a chandelier at the property. Martha confronted Lewis, suspected his involvement, and fired him. On March 25, 2020, Lewis broke into Snowden House and murdered 63-year-old Martha McKay by fatally injuring her with a knife and bludgeoning her to death at the top of the stairs. When police arrived, he jumped from a second-story window and drowned in Horseshoe Lake while trying to escape. The similarities are chilling. Both cases involved men with violent criminal histories who were released after long prison sentences and involved in murders committed shortly after release. Both men are centered on perceived financial betrayals, whether real or imagined. A study published in the Journal of Interpersonal Violence found that 13.5% of post-release homicides are related to intimate partner violence, with recently released offenders often targeting former partners or family members. These murders frequently involve firearms or close-range attacks, exactly like what happened to Tiffany Wade. The research shows that the period immediately following release from prison is particularly high risk, as offenders are dealing with re-entry challenges, potential feelings of abandonment or betrayal, and access to people they may blame for their incarceration or other grievances. So what can we learn from Tiffany's death? What can we take away from this tragedy to prevent the next one? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.